we are good to go. So thank you all for joining us. And I'm sure it's not many of your first Zoom calls, but just a few housekeeping tips. If you could just mute yourself unless you are speaking, that would help. And then feel free to use the chat feature. And I think that should be it. With that, I will hand it over to Julie.
Actually, I'm going to hand it over to Corey, who is still the chair.
Okay.
Well, so that's what I was actually going to ask about that. Am I the chair? Because this is our first meeting of our fiscal year, so I don't think I can do that, can I?
You are still the chair until we have elections.
All right, so I can call the
Yep.
meeting to order then.
You may call the meeting to order, sir.
Sweet. All right, hang on just 1 second. I was still loading some stuff up here.
We can even raise our hands, Corey, by doing that or clapping.
Right. So first item up then is the approval of the minutes from way back on March 11th.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? I'm assuming just jump up and down or something if you do.
No, I'll second it, Corey.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So that one carries. Updates. I don't know, Jim, did you want to start?
Sure. Things are rough. Things are rough to say the least. We've had probably 80% of our group bookings through the end of the year at the Marriott cancel. We are picking up some small room blocks here and there, but it's pretty slow going. I now have 3 other of Atrium's properties in different states, and it's interesting to watch kind of what business levels are occurring at other properties and other localities with other restrictions, other perspectives on COVID and what have you. Things are rough. Right now the hotel's averaging probably 15 rooms sold per day if we're lucky. So.
Yeah,
Sure.
we're kind of in the same boat. I don't know. It's just like events after events after events keep canceling. Really, the only thing that we're hanging on were like the wedding couples that rescheduled already. And
Right.
Unfortunately, I was talking to Julie about this. I haven't been able to figure out for sure, but we're losing stuff because of the damage from the riots now too. So like our downtown hotels are being impacted by that, and we even have some properties out on the west side that work with some blocks and stuff like that for stuff going on down there. So like Overture Center, for instance, was damaged all the way around, and I haven't even talked to anybody there. I don't know what's going on there. Other than it's boarded up, but we had somebody call and move an event all the way down in September. So they're obviously, it's 3 months out. So I really don't have any updates. So other than that, we're kind of hoping to maybe have things kind of start picking up in August, and I think the jury is out on September right now. And we had our first bout with some vandalism at our Hilton Garden Inn in Middleton. I said, that's not.
No.
Yeah. I didn't even know about it. I just found out about it today. So I have no idea if it was related to anything or if it was just somebody being a jerk. So
What happened? What did they do?
I honestly don't even know. I just found out about it a couple hours ago.
Okay.
They were telling us about it. So the problem is everything's consolidated and there's no cars, so everything looks empty. So somebody sees that there's no people there, they're going to jump on an opportunity. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Is it
People
safe
have to be jerks.
Yeah. Is it safe to assume, guys, that room tax collections will be close to 0 for the second quarter based on what you're seeing?
For us, yeah. I mean, we're really kind of averaging, like I said, we consolidated our stuff, but we're really kind of averaging in line with what the Marriott's doing. If you broke it down per hotel, it's like right in line, so.
Is your Hampton Inn open over there by Pinnacle? I know that's Madison, but is that one open?
Everything's technically opened, but we're consolidating. Don't put this in the minutes, but we're consolidating it down to the Homewood Suites right now. So like the True and the Hampton, and then basically in Middleton we're consolidating to the Residence Inn. I have been told partially because of this vandalism thing that went on, that we're going to kind of open everything back up in the next few weeks. So we'll see. That is not a, hey, we're doing great, we're opening up. It's a hey, we're opening up because people
If the
can't
lights
behave.
on, the
Yeah.
lights on, people won't do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, it's just more or less having a presence, like, and having, there's always somebody there. None of the properties are empty, but just having people there.
Mm-hmm. I talked to Jose over at Country Inn and Suites a couple of weeks ago. He's pretty much in the same situation as you gentlemen are. I haven't been able to connect with Staybridge. They've been on the run. So as we start moving into the budgeting discussions, I'm going to make an effort to get a meeting with everybody just to understand where we are going into the remainder of this year, and then what they've got on the books for 2021. But Diane and I have been talking for the last, basically ever since this happened. And the numbers keep getting adjusted. And for a while, they just kept getting adjusted downward, which was getting pretty depressive. I think the last conversation that the two of us had sounded like it was a little more optimistic, but it's grim. It's grim out there right now. Anything else on the hotels, gentlemen? Okay, I just have a couple of things. I participated today in a panel event for the Chamber of Commerce called Marketing During the Pandemic. I really presented more of a case study of what we've been doing at tourism since the pandemic hit, and how our marketing has pivoted from a myriad of segments, basically down to supporting local businesses, supporting safer at home, and that we're starting to emerge a little bit in terms of marketing to the leisure market, which for us is going to be the drive market. I sat on a webinar today, and I think we're in somewhat of a enviable position, because we have a lot of outdoor assets to offer. And we also have drivable access from major urban areas like Chicago and Milwaukee, and even points in Minnesota and in Iowa. So I think our discussion at the beginning of the year about getting more involved in regional collaborations and crossing the borders is really going to have an impact as we start reaching out to the leisure people. The other segments, there was a gentleman on one of the webinars today saying that he thought that business travel could take up to 3 years to come back. And a lot of that is not so much due to transportation or lodging issues, but companies that have been impacted financially and have put restrictions on travel and reduced their meetings. So that whole segment is, it's kind of a work in progress right now, but it's going to be a while before we recover from this.
Yeah, the president of our company has said that he doesn't expect us to be back to 2019 levels until 2023.
Yeah, that's what I heard today.
So
So we'll have to, like we said, just start looking at the leisure market and see if we can cross the borders and attract some people in here. And Diane has been working with us, Fitchburg, Verona, Sun Prairie. Am I missing anybody? You and us, that's 5. On regional collaboration efforts, and we can chat about that a little bit later. We have an open seat on the commission. I think I mentioned that in the email that I sent out on Monday. The mayor contacted me and asked me for some suggestions. I offered Capital Brewery, because I think that not only are they a venue, but we also consider them an attraction. And they have retail, but I don't think the retail will prohibit them from sitting on the commission the way the ordinance is drafted. Scott and Kevin both responded. I think Scott's preference is to have Kevin sit on the commission. So I sent him an application. I'm hoping that he can get that to Gurdeep by the end of the week, so Gurdeep can have a conversation with him and then get this on the agenda for the council meeting on Tuesday, so we can get our sixth person online here. There was a lot of discussion on behalf of staff, all staff that are liaisons between committees about the process this year. I think that the election kind of impeded the process, and then COVID-19 impeded the process. But there was a major lack of communication, I think is the best way to say it. So staff is putting together some of our concerns to present to the mayor. If any of you would be willing to talk to me about if you had a conversation, if you just submitted the application and you never heard back from him, was there any kind of follow-up from anybody besides me? Anything that you can provide me would be helpful in us drafting recommendations going forward.
And Julie, you and I did
Yes.
speak, so do you have our notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Julie, at
Yes.
last night's LNO meeting, Larry Beckler was talking about making all terms 3
Yeah.
years. How would that work for tourism?
Well, tourism has a state statute
Mm-hmm.
that sort of mandates what the terms
Okay.
are. And I'm going to ask Diane to jump in here because I don't know if a local city can draft an ordinance that supersedes that or complements it. Do you have any idea?
Well, essentially, we're all bound by the state ordinance as it relates to uses of room tax, as it relates to how it's distributed. So the state ordinance, the state statute would really take, would be the governing or legislation. So cities can't overrule that.
I'll flag that for Larry so he makes sure that he understands for tourism that there are unique circumstances so that we do take that into account. So.
Did he mention tourism last night, Kathy, when he was going through the list? I didn't.
No, I didn't hear tourism.
And that might be why.
Okay.
And I know the library board has a similar
that's unique. That's unique.
circumstance. So, I mean, as Diane says, it may be what it is, and that's what we're going to have to roll with.
That's nothing
Thanks
wrong
for
with that.
asking, though. Yeah.
Mhm.
I overlooked adding the elections to the agenda this evening. So we will add that to the next agenda. Actually, I was hoping that we would have our sixth person here so that everybody would be able to cast a vote.
Mhm.
So
Well,
just
give people time to campaign if they're interested.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
Corey?
I was just going to say, I don't remember campaiigning last year.
And no, we will not
you
put a
can do
yard
it.
sign in front of the visitor center. No yard signs at the visitor center.
I had a big yard in front of my house for you, Corey.
And then speaking of the visitor center, we're targeting July 6th as an opening date and a return to office date. Right now, we're working on reconfiguring the front office because we barely have 6 feet of social distance between staff out there. So we're trying to figure out how we can make that work a little bit better than what it is. I asked Laura to look into vendors that provided air quality testing, because I've noticed since I've been working remote these past 2.5 months or however long it's been, I had a really nagging cough that is gone.
Oh.
And yeah, and other staff have commented, and I know when Mary Schneider was here last year, she was miserable most of the time that she worked here. And she had asthma, so whatever was going on in here was compounding her problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So as part of the COVID-19 health and safety checks, we just decided to go ahead and do this. We got the report back, I think that was yesterday, wasn't it, Laura? Or, and I just glanced through it today. And one of the recommendations that this gentleman made is that we replace all of the flooring, well, not replace, that we take up the flooring that's in the back half of the building. So basically from the front of the building all the way back to the rear, including my office and the break room storage area that's behind me. Take all that board up and either put down some sort of a subfloor or figure out some sort of a covering that can go down there, because what's happening is fiberglass dust is coming up through the floorboards. And that's probably, and I sit right under a floor that's probably got about a 3/4 of an inch crack between the two pieces of board. So that really wasn't anything that I wanted to hear, but I think in view of everybody's health and well-being, this is something we'll have to look into before we decide to open the office. Yes, I see a hand.
Yeah, did they check for anything else like black mold or anything like that?
Yes, it was a pretty extensive list. He saw
Okay.
a little bit of mold back by the slop area, I think it was, Laura. That sounded like that could be easily cleaned up
Yeah.
with just detergent and water.
Yep.
But it's the insulation that's underneath the, when they blew the insulation underneath the building, they didn't do anything to protect between the insulation and the flooring.
Is it worth staying there, and or would it be better off to move?
Well, that's probably the next conversation we're going to have. And maybe we can take that up when we start looking at the 2021 budget. It sounds to me like the civic campus is probably on hold for a while, and Kathy, feel free to jump in here. That would have been probably the logical move, but it's looking like that'll at least be 5 years before.
What about across the street
before
in
that comes to fruition? I thought about the space that was over in Amped, and we had long ago looked at the building that is currently common ground down on the corner of Century Avenue and what's the cross street? Whatever the cross street
Branch.
is.
Branch.
Thank you. Yeah. And Common Ground is closing. I don't know if you all knew that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she couldn't make it. So that might be an option.
But you got the Stang building too. Is it Stang, the one that's on University Avenue right by like Middleton Jewelers? It's all for sale, but I don't know if they're willing to divide up any of those offices.
I don't know anything
You
about
know what
that.
I'm talking about? It's, you know where Middleton Jewelers is?
Yeah.
If you're looking at Middleton Jewelers, it'd be up on that next corner across from Jiffy Lube.
So it's
think it's
further down
Jiffy Lube?
University.
Yeah, it's an empty, I don't know if it's empty, but I know it's selling. I don't know if some of the tenants are leaving or what, but
Yeah.
they might have space. I know it's not right downtown though either.
Well, it's the other thing we got to remember is we don't pay rent.
That's true.
We do not pay
You're
rent.
What about the building with the senior center, and is there space in there? I don't know if that would be something because Parks and Recs use it sometime, if that would be something you could swap over so that they could use the other building, because there's
The
noise.
Hubbard, are you talking
Yeah.
about the Hubbard Activities Center?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did poke my head in there and it's pretty small.
Oh, is it? Okay, because I was
Yeah,
just
and-
wondering, it might be more compatible for them to be in the depot of able to make noise and stuff and have,
Yeah.
but.
You gotta
I-
wonder too, like if it is the floor in the depot, like if it would make sense to put an underlayment down and move the floorboards over. I mean, I don't know what that would cost, but
When we had the contractor in here that was looking at replacing the windows, he told me that they had talked about doing that as a solution to, put those boards tighter together.
right.
They opted to pass on that because they couldn't figure out how to fill in the space on the other end that wouldn't compromise the integrity of the floor.
With, like getting matching wood, basically.
Yeah, and then I said, well, is there anything that you can just fill in the cracks with? And he didn't think that was an option either. So my next step here is going to be to send this report over to the facilities manager and have Todd look at it and then make some recommendations on next steps for us.
Because
But I
you'd have
just
to get
wanna-
that repaired before you move everybody back
Well,
in, right?
that's why I raised the issue, because if
Yeah.
it truly is a health concern, it doesn't make any sense for us to come back in here. And, you know, quite frankly, based on what the hotels are telling us, we're not going to have an influx of visitors here anytime in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather do what's in the best interest of staff safety and health. And you know, if we're going to stay here, which is probably the more cost-effective idea than moving, to Corey's point, we don't pay rent.
Well, the other thing is we've put so much money into that building already too. You know, that's where I just would be curious to see like what the options would be on the floor.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I always wondered that about that building with the big cracks in the floors, and you know, I was like, well, what's under there? Is it just dirt or what? You know?
Yeah.
An underground railroad station.
Yeah. Pull up,
And
they
Laura
pull
can
up those
show
floorboards.
you
You might
where
find
they
some
go
treasure.
down, right?